This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report, what's going on in Washington and other questions raised by the Farm Bill fiasco. Also, we didn't fall off the cliff. Will your taxes fly? And would you like some oregano with your chicken? It's a wacky start to the new year on the always sensible Four Rivers Ag Report. Welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta. Well, I hope everyone had a great Christmas and a Happy New Year, and so far you're still hanging on to those resolutions. Me? Not so much. And if we hoped that Washington was going to sing Auld Lang Syne, toast compromise, and promise to play nice for a time while we deal with the pile of problems that we have, I think I stuck to my diet longer than they got along in 2013. Well, count me as one who thought that the Farm Bill would pass as presented to the House. Well, better luck next time, and there will be a next time. Instead, we have a 9-month extension, and maybe we can use the milk price scare to get a serious bill passed sooner, as opposed to later. And since my skills as a political analyst are highly suspect, I asked Richard Wanling, the chair of the Eastern Political Science Department, to visit and help me understand what exactly happened. So joining me today to talk about all things Washington, D.C. and the mess they have there is Richard Wanling. He's the chair of the Political Science Department at Eastern Illinois University. He talked shortly after the election about a pretty optimistic message that maybe we could get some stuff done. I think we probably should revisit that question.
I'm a little bit less optimistic.
I think
and certainly the battle over the fiscal cliff, as much as I hate to use that term,
exactly,
is a bad sign for all of us.
So the system of checks and balances that are the American government system is based on, those checks and balances are there for a reason, but are those checks being abused in some ways, do you think?
Well, I wouldn't go so far as
abused
to
may be too strong a word.
They're being abused, but they're certainly getting in the way of the ability to come up with solutions to policy problems and political issues. For example, the filibuster.
The filibuster reform in the Senate. So there is talk about changing the Senate rules,
yes,
to end the nonverbal filibuster. Can you explain that?
Well, it used to be some years ago that a filibuster actually meant that there physically would be a filibuster. That
so Mr. Smith goes to Washington.
Yeah, one party would have to take the floor and then read from the phone book or the Code of Federal Regulations and hold the floor for 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours, whatever. Mm-hmm. In recent years, the difference is that just the threat of holding a filibuster has been sufficient to have a filibuster gum up the works. So
a filibuster requires the Senate to act how before a bill can come to the floor?
Well, a filibuster means that the Senate is going to have 60 votes.
Okay.
Because 60 votes is going to be what's needed to stop the filibuster.
Okay. So the threat of this filibuster is as good as a filibuster these days?
Unfortunately, yes.
So that holds up what sort of activity in the Senate?
Well, it makes it very difficult to just get the lawmaking process to work. It makes it very difficult to come up with legislation because the Democratic Party does not have a filibuster-proof majority. Mm-hmm. And given the partisan composition and the ideological patterns within the Senate, the threat of a filibuster has been enough just to slow down the process and, for that matter, even hold up legislation.
Now, one of the things that's important to this community is the Farm Bill, 2012 Farm Bill, that did make it out of the Senate Agricultural Committee and got passed by the Senate, a very large margin, and sat around the House. What happened there?
Well, that shows the other side of it, because it's not just a filibuster these days that can create problems. There can be problems created when there is division within a political party. And obviously we're talking about the Republican Party and the leadership system of the House of Representatives.
So the House, the Ag bill did not get called up to a vote because the House leadership did not want it to be called up at that time?
I think it goes, that's part of it, but part of it is that it has been very difficult for Speaker Boehner just to assemble any type of working majority on any type of legislation that has any degree of political or policy complexity.
Okay, so it's black or white, and you're not quite sure whether or not black and white's going to work.
Yes.
Okay, so you have the strident breakdown of nearly equal parts Republican and Democrats in the Senate, a slight lead of the Democrats, but not enough to break the filibuster. You have a much narrower lead of the Republicans in the House, but the leadership structure is the same. Is there hope for America, for this Congress to do their job?
Well, there's always reason for hope. And we should have hope.
Okay.
But the reality of it is that it does not look very promising. Speaker Boehner, ran into some resistance when he was going to have his term renewed as Speaker of the House. The fiscal cliff vote, again, reluctant to use that term, but that's part of the common parlance. You saw a split, internal split within the Republican leadership in the House.
And it almost cost Boehner his seat, right?
Yes, although, again, part of it is that there's not really anyone who's quite willing in the Republican Party to take his seat, because
nobody wants the job.
Everyone knows how difficult it is.
Right.
Yes.
So in order to, the Farm Bill was extended by 9 months.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Between now and September, the committee has to go back into the sessions. The Ag Committee's coming back. Negotiation starts at square one. Do you see hope for legislation moving that quickly in this Congress or not?
I'm not that optimistic, and part of the reason I'm not that optimistic is that we have really some other major items on the agenda, one of which is the threat to not extend the debt limit and all the theater that's associated with that. We also have the budget process itself that is going to start moving along. We also have the question of sequestration and how to respond to the mandatory sequestrations that were part of the budget deal from a year ago.
Right, right. And throw on top of that any gun control issues, given, any foreign problem that we have going on. It's going to be an interesting month. I'm not sure, or interesting year. I'm not sure it's going to be too productive.
If there's any hope for it being productive with respect to farm legislation, it would be that many of the Republicans in the House come from states that have a strong agricultural component to their economy. And perhaps there may be a line that has been crossed, and the agricultural community might be able to encourage Republicans to move the legislation through.
So I promised my my freshman year speech teacher I would never do this. I'm going to ask people out there, contact your congressman, and let's get something going on this regard. So thank you, Richard. It was very interesting. Hopefully we'll talk again soon about all the legislation that's been moving through at a light speed, right?
Light speed,
okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. Now, Monica Becker is here with more on watching the river flow. Monica?
Thanks, Fred. Rock removal in the Mississippi River near St. Louis is rolling along. The Army Corps of Engineers announced that they have mostly removed rock pinnacles and other barriers in the river to make a 300-foot wide channel near Thebes. The work is anticipated to be finished by the end of the month. When that is done, the Corps will begin the removal of more rock near Grand Tower. The Corps added this area when it was found that an area of rock needed to be removed to maintain the channel. The Corps say they were unable to release water from the Missouri River to maintain the Mississippi at a safe level here. The release of water from Carlisle Lake has helped maintain a navigable level, and water from upstream locks have been used. But this is not enough to keep the Grand Tower Channel high enough without the rock removal. Right now, the snow level on the fields around the state are all over the map. Around here, there is little or no snow on the ground, so we don't need to think about runoff, or do we? The agriculturalists at University of Illinois have been working on ways to reduce nitrate losses from farm fields for decades. Now the land grant is furthering that research. Todd Gleason has more.
Researchers at Illinois have some of the oldest constructed and operational wetlands in the nation. They were built in 1994. Now those wetlands and a brand new set, along with something called a bioreactor, are being called into service again.
The project is to put some of those in, learn about how well they work, look at their greenhouse gas emissions, how well they remove nitrate, and then also communicate that to landowners, stakeholders in the watershed, and that's where we bring in the team that we have, which includes a rural sociologist, Courtney Flint, and so she brings in, she's done a survey of landowners in the watershed already. We'll be doing field days to show them the wetlands, show them the bioreactors, and then try and assess their willingness and sort of what are their views, do those views change about what they think about those kind of practices.
In particular, the researchers are interested in what farmers and landowners think about the bioreactor installation. It is scientifically clear the tile lines buried in many farm fields carry away not only extra water, but also nitrates. It's a byproduct of the plant food used to help the crops on the field grow. When installed at the end of the tile line, the bioreactor can remove some of those nitrates.
And the nitrate is removed by microorganisms living on the wood chips. So we basically divert the flow through a trench, and the trench is full of wood chips. And so that water spends hours to maybe even days moving through the wood chips. Most of the time at higher flows, it's 2 or 3 hours, maybe 4 or 5 hours. And during that time, the microbes are able to remove the nitrate, and it goes back to the atmosphere as a harmless gas.
If the research and its outreach program are successful, the eventual large-scale adoption of bioreactors could improve drinking water in local areas and reduce the size of the hypoxia zone in the Gulf of Mexico. For University of Illinois Extension, I'm Todd Gleason.
Lost in all the fiscal cliff stuff is that the new Congress was sworn in last week, and we now know the committee assignment of the representatives. 3 new Illinois representatives have been named to the House Agriculture Committee, 2 Democrats and Republican Rodney Davis. And since the Farm Bill has been kicked back to committee, as the one downstate member on the Ag Committee, Representative Davis is likely to have his hands full right away. And from the fox in the hen house to the hens, a Pennsylvania farmer is spicing up his poultry product with oregano. Scott Seschler was concerned about antibiotics in the raising of his chickens, that he looked for a more natural way of keeping his chicks healthy. He has been feeding his chickens a special diet of millet laced with oregano oil and a touch of cinnamon. Seschler claims that the diet, besides being tasty, is a way of fighting off bacterial illness that are common in meat and poultry without antibiotics. Studies are ongoing, but if this works, we could see one spicy chicken nugget. I'm Monica Becker. Thanks for watching.
The expression is, the only thing that's sure in life is death and taxes. But with farmers, it's quite often death, yeah, sure. Taxes, what can I deduct? Well, I talked to Dwight Rabb of Farm Business Farm Management about getting ready for April 15th. With me now is Dwight Rabb. He's the director of the Illinois Farm Business Farm Management Association. He's located right now in Urbana, Illinois. And Dwight, January 1st is a time that a lot of people and a lot of farmers begin to think about the awful T word. What sort of things happened on January 1st a farmer needs to think about?
Well, we had several things that happened. Some of those affect the year going forward, so it would affect the 2013 year. Some of those, believe it or not, even though that's called the 2012 Act, I'm sorry, the 2013 Act, it really has some effect in 2012. Probably for farm clients, the two biggest changes that came about for 2012, kind of in retrospect, were what we call the expense election. It's the IRS Code Section 179 expense election. It permits an individual, if they want to accelerate all the depreciation for capital purchases into the first year, even though those, if we set those into a depreciation schedule, they might happen over a period of time, 5 years or 7 years. So that limit, as far as what we knew for 2012, was $139,000.
Okay.
Lo and behold, when they passed that legislation for 2012, in retrospect, they bumped that up to $500,000.
Wow. So that's quite a bit of equipment you could write off for depreciation, correct?
It certainly could be. Unfortunately, there's probably a lot of folks who went up to the $139,000 limit, didn't purchase more than that, stopped there, and so even now, after the fact, there's nothing more to go back and get in terms of that expense election.
Okay. What other things were in this present that we unwrapped it on January 1st?
The other thing that would have had a significant impact, too, is we had bonus depreciation in place for 2012. That's a separate tax provision from this 179 expense selection. Bonus depreciation at the 50% level was in place for 2012, was scheduled to expire. Now it's extended into 2013. Okay. So it's nice to know going forward that we'll still have bonus depreciation in place, while at the same time we'll have this 179 election in place that was at $500,000 for 2012 and is scheduled to be at $500,000 for 2013. So two big pieces of tax code that we use a lot out in farm country.
Now, the drought is still coming to haunt us. A lot of farmers who never, ever, ever collected a single dime from crop insurance have gotten checks for crop insurance.
Certainly.
Is there some things they should know or think about before heading into their business planning? I mean, their tax planning.
Certainly. There is tax code. There is provision for dealing with crop insurance. Goes back a considerable number of years. Mm-hmm. Effectively, what that code does is it lets an individual treat the proceeds from crop insurance like the crop had they raised it.
Okay.
There's a good number of farmers sell their crop in the calendar year after they raise it. Mm-hmm. So we would sell our 2012 crop in 2013.
Okay.
It's possible that those folks got a crop insurance payment in 2012, actually received the money. That would have put them so that they would have sold their 2011 crop in 2012. Now we've got this crop insurance money on top of that in 2012.
So you have a huge income bump for that particular year.
Right. Effectively could be as much as selling 2 crops in 1 year.
Wow.
The IRS will, if you adhere to, there's some rules to follow in there, but the IRS will permit, it's a tax election, so you can actually be in receipt of the money, but make an election on your tax return to defer that income to the 2013 year.
Okay.
One has to be a cash basis taxpayer. It's only good for 1 year, and you have to have received the money in the year of the destruction that caused the damage. So you have to receive the money in 2012 for a 2012 drought. You only get that 1 year extension, and then you have to pick that up on a next year's tax return. Oh. You have to normally be in a pattern of selling that crop the year after you raise it. Mm-hmm. If I'm a farmer who normally sells my crop the year that I raise it, so if I sell my 2012 crop in 2012, this deferral is not available to me.
Okay.
I have to be in the pattern of selling the crop the year after I raise it for this election to be deferral to me. That kind of goes back to the IRS's intent of letting me treat the crop insurance money like the crop had I raised it.
Okay. Now the aflatoxin scare caused a lot of farmers to bring grain in.
Yes, it did.
What grain they had. So would that add difficulty to that delay? If you don't normally sell crop, and then you sold this crop to get it out of your bin before the mold grew, would that cause you problems if you were trying to delay payment?
Maybe no more than what we've already done, because aflatoxin issues are part of crop insurance policies.
Okay.
actually had to be dealt with back at harvest. If one suspected that they had an aflatoxin issue and thought that there might be a crop insurance claim for, you needed to take care of that at harvest. Crop insurance policies are in place and cover a crop up until that crop is harvested. So a crop insurance policy, as I understand it, doesn't cover a crop after it's in the bin.
Okay.
So aflatoxin issues needed to be dealt with as the crop was harvested, before it was put in a bin, before it was taken to town to have a successful claim if there's an aflatoxin issue.
Okay. Farmers are really good. Farmers I know are really good about keeping records, saving all the receipts, all the bin receipts, everything. Have you found that there are some records farmers and others, agricultural producers, have not been as good as following and keeping that they should?
Certainly, with what we do at Farm Business Farm Management, one of our jobs is to help the folks that we work with keep a good set of records.
Right.
So we strive at doing that all year long. Unfortunately, it's pretty easy to let some of those kind of things go until now, and it's pretty hard to resurrect what happened in January of 2012 when you're in January of 2013. So probably an important part to that is maybe not to let that go until the end of the year, to do that record keeping all year long. We have folks that use software to do that. We have folks that still use our handheld record system, and they're very comfortable with using a pencil and an eraser and keep track of all that by hand. One can be as accurate with either system, but it's probably the important part is to get started on that way ahead of time, like at the outset of the year.
Well, Dwight Rabb of the Illinois Farm Business Farm Management Association, thank you so much. I got a feeling we'll be talking to you again.
My pleasure.
2012 is now in the rearview mirror, and I, for one, hope we never see weather year like that again. Cameron Craig, a brave man to be sure, takes a look at the year and weather in Under the Four Rivers skies.
It is not hard to say that 2012 will be a year to remember for a significant warm winter and an exceptional drought. It is also the year that more and more citizens of our nation began to shift their attitudes about climate change. January's average temperature was 33.7 degrees, which put it 5.7 degrees above normal. The precipitation was slightly above normal with 2.85 inches. February continued to be warmer than the 30-year average with 37.9 degrees. The lack of precipitation in February left precipitation at 1.18 inches. March was significantly warmer with 59.1 degrees, which was 16.9 degrees above the 30-year average of 42.2 degrees. Precipitation continued to be below normal, with only 1.52 inches recorded. April was closer to the normal by 3.9 degrees, putting it 57.7 degrees for the month. We received more precipitation in April with 4.79 inches, putting it 1.05 inches above the 30-year average. Warm conditions continued in May with a temperature of 71.7, which was 7.8 degrees above average. Precipitation amounts dwindled with 1.69 inches, down 2.60 inches. June's average temperature was recorded at 74.1 degrees, 1.4 degrees above average. Again, the lack of precipitation in June continued to allow drought conditions to set in with only 0.93 inches of rain, down 3.1 inches. July's temperature was 84.4 degrees, 7.7 degrees above average. There was only one day that the temperature fell below 90 degrees, and this was due to the significant lack of precipitation. Precipitation for July was only 0.08 inches, which was down 3.92 inches from the 30-year average. In August, temperatures began to fall, leaving it with an average temperature of 75.9, up 1.1 degrees from the 30-year average. Precipitation also improved with 2.77 inches, down 0.57 inches. September, for the first time in the year, fell below the 30-year average with 66.8 degrees, down 1.3 degrees. Significant rains from Hurricane Isaac and frequent storm systems brought the total precipitation to 8.33 inches, which was 4.95 inches above the 30-year average. Cooler temperatures continued in October with an average of 55 degrees, down 1.7 degrees, and precipitation was recorded at 3.90 inches, up 0.79 inches from the 30-year average. Temperatures in November were very near the 30-year normal with 43.4 degrees, down only 0.1 degrees. Precipitation dwindled a bit in November with 1.49 inches, down 1.69 inches. And December was 7.3 degrees warmer than the 30-year average at 39.5 degrees. Precipitation rebounded with a total of 4 inches, up 1.32 inches. For the year, the average temperature was 58.3 degrees, which was 4.5 degrees above the 30-year average. Precipitation was recorded at 33.53 inches, with only 5.21 inches below the average. 2012 will definitely be the year to remember.
Well, that's it for this week. Be sure to start following us on Twitter at 4RiversAg, no spaces. And starting next week, our crop guys will be dropping in and we'll see what they've been doing since harvest, other than drinking coffee. So work hard, be safe, and enjoy the beautiful 2013 sunsets. I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the 4 Rivers Ag Report.